1, 2, 3, 4.
All right. Grappling with the text. We're continuing in 1 Peter, and we're still in chapter 1. Today we have verses 13 through 16. We're going to poke around and see what we see. We start with the therefore, and we got to always remember what the therefore is there for. And the therefore is there because Peter has just reminded us that not only the prophets, but also the angels desire to look into these things which we have. The salvation won for us by the death of Jesus on the cross and brought to us now, in the Word, especially in baptism, in the Lord's Supper. This salvation won by Jesus and delivered in the church is ours. The things that the prophets long to look into and the angels long to study, so that's the object of their attention and their meditation, and so it should be ours. So Peter says, therefore, prepare your minds. Don't just let the prophets and the angels meditate on these things, but you also, who are called by them, prepare your minds for action. Be ready. Because this salvation, this being baptized, this belonging to Jesus, this being part of the church, this is something that matters. And it's going to demand something of you. When we go into the Lord's church, we are making a confession that we are not of this world, that we belong to this pilgrim people that Peter's been talking about, that we have a different confession, and most especially that we have a different Lord, whose kingdom is not of this earth. And the king who is of this earth, namely the devil, along with his friends, the world and the flesh, hate this confession. They hate the gospel. And so, being part of the church means being persecuted. Now, we don't see it too much in our day. If we paid attention, we might see it a little bit more. But and especially our brothers and sisters throughout the world are suffering for the name of Jesus in really, really profound sort of ways. But we don't feel it that much, and we say, well, the persecution of the church, maybe that's for a different time and for a different place. But really, when we start to look at the scriptures, we see that the persecution of the church is promised to us. Jesus says, you will have trouble in this world, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. So we're promised trouble, and so we believe that the church is persecuted even when we don't feel it. You know, it is an article of faith before it's an article of feeling. So prepare your minds for action. Trouble will come. And along with that, we have this command, which Peter's going to repeat 2 or 3 times, be sober. Now, this command, be sober, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. We'll talk about this in a little bit. But this sobriety is not necessarily the saying, don't be drunk. It doesn't say less than that, but it's saying more than that. The sobriety that it's talking about here is a spiritual and mental seriousness that says that I'm not swept away by the things of the world or the flesh or the devil, of course, but I'm not swept away by gluttony or by greed or by earthly desires or this sort of thing. I'm not overcome by them, but I have a mind that's able to pray. I have a mind that's alert. The picture of sobriety is the picture of the watchman. Remember, if for the Roman Empire, they had this huge boundary of their territory, and there's Spain, and here, and they had these every few hundred yards they'd have these watchtowers, and they'd put men there, and their job was to watch. And their only job was to be awake. That's the kind of thing that it's talking about here. The sobriety that Peter's discussing is an alertness, and that alertness is especially found. Oh, time to wake up, everybody. That alertness is especially found in our prayers. Sorry, got to turn my alarm off. I suppose that's what happens when we record early in the morning. That alertness is especially found, again, in prayers. So sobriety and prayer belong together. We'll see that develop in Peter. So be sober and set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. We're tempted to hope in a lot of things, We're tempted to hope in ourselves. We're tempted to hope in our ability. We're tempted to hope in our possessions. We're tempted to hope in our family, all these sorts of things. And all of these things, if we hope in anything but God, then that is going to be what we call idolatry. So our hope is solely, set your hope fully, and that means alone, on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Now, this next phrase is a little bit of a surprise, and it's a surprise to me, but it's a good surprise if we understand it rightly. Peter addresses us and he gives us a title. He says, as children of obedience, not conforming yourself according to your former lusts and ignorance, but just as he who called you is holy, you yourselves be holy in all of your behavior. So we're called the children of obedience. Tekna, here's the Greek if you're interested. Tekna hupakoes. Now this means that we are children of maybe a better way to say it is we're children of order. We are not handed over to the chaos of lust and desire, but rather we live under order that God has established in the world. So when Peter gets to chapter 2 and chapter 3 and he's going through his table of duties, he's going to look at us and see our lives as lives of submission. And depending on where we are in this world, we have different things that we are submitting to. Now, the great kind of culmination of all of this is going to be how nothing submits to Christ and the devil submits to him, and we'll see that when we get to it. But we live as we live as free people, but we don't use our freedom as a cloak for vice, but rather we live in the orders that God has given to us. And those orders are particularly three: the family, and the church, and the state. The three estates, the three orders or institutions that the Lord has set up in the world. And we acknowledge those and we live in them. So as children of obedience, and that's living in the order that God has established, not conforming yourselves according to your former lusts in your ignorance, see? But as he who has called you is holy, you yourselves be holy in all of your behavior, because it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. Now this verse here is basically the theme verse of Leviticus. You can find it in Leviticus chapter 11, verse 44, Leviticus 19, verse 2, Leviticus 20, verse 7, and so forth. God is holy, and we, as his children, are called to be holy. Now, a lot of times this is preached amongst us as pure gospel. In other words, it says, the only way to be holy like this is the forgiveness of sins. And I think that's the end of the story, but that's not the whole story, because look, it says here, be holy in all of your behavior, that this is also the law. And when Jesus preaches this, be holy as I am holy, be merciful as I am merciful, what he's saying is that our own lives are a reflection of the character of the God that we worship. Now, this is a biblical theme that maybe is neglected because it is in some ways a fairly severe law. First, I got to write this down. Reflection. We worship. Now, the best place that we see this is in the Old Testament preaching of idolatry. So Isaiah will preach, and he'll look at the people who are bowing down to the various idols that are there, and he points out that these idols, they don't have any mouths, they're mute, they don't have any feet to do anything, they're made out of a stick, or whatever, they're made out of wood, and he says the people who worship them become like them. mute, unable to think or see, and so forth. So that when we commit idolatry, we start to reflect the character of the particular false god that we worship. When we worship money, for example, the most common false idol, then we become flighty like money. We become unsure like money. We become somewhat deceptive like money, so that we reflect the character of the god that we worship. I remember one time we were visiting Athens, and I was there with Pastor Warren Graff, and we were at the Temple of Festus down on the Acropolis is up here, and this Temple of Festus is down here. And we were walking around the Temple of Festus, and I asked him, I said, what's the difference? If you were to visit Athens and then to visit Jerusalem back in the year 0, how would you know the difference between the gods that were there in all of the temples and the God that dwelled in Jerusalem? And Pastor Graff, he pointed out a couple things to me, but he says, the first thing is that the God who lives in Jerusalem is one, whereas you find temples for these pagan gods all over the place. There are many. But the other thing was this: the God who lives on Mount Zion is holy. All the pagan gods are committing adultery and murder and all this sort of stuff. But the God who lives in Zion, the God who lives in Jerusalem, is a holy God and a merciful God. And that is the thing that sets him apart, the thing that is unique. And as Christians, then, as we worship the God who is holy and the God who is merciful, then our own lives begin to be a reflection of that. When we meditate on the fact, and I hope to get into your hands Martin Luther's Freedom of a Christian, but he loves to talk about that. When we recognize that we have everything by faith and not by works, that by our faith in Christ we are complete and we have all the treasures of heaven, then we are really, truly set free to go and to love and to serve our neighbor with a love that the world has no thought of. We're able to serve and give and bless with an abandonment. So it's true that the holiness of the Lord comes first by the forgiveness of sins, but it is also true, then, that forgiveness of sins starts to shape up even our conversation and our behavior, so that the Christian acts differently in the world because of the holiness that we have from God. Now, this holiness, of course, can never earn or deserve faith or justification, but because the Lord has given it to us, now it becomes a reflection of our own lives. We worship the God who died and is raised on the third day. And that means that our lives are marked with love, with service, and most especially with life itself. All right, there it is. Set your minds for action. Be sober. Put your hope on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. That's the resurrection. And as children of obedience, not conforming yourselves according to your former lusts and your ignorance, but just as he who called you is holy, you yourselves also be holy in your behavior. It's written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. That's Grappling with the Text, 1 Peter 3, 13 through 16. Remember, we're looking for 25 likes, 25 comments. We're looking for a contest idea for next time I do this. And you guys keep in touch. You can see some of the other stuff I'm up to at Wolfmueller, the old blog. I'm writing it. You can't even see it. At wolfmueller.co. Check it out. Talk to you soon.
Worldview Everlasting is solid, Christian, and free because it is viewer-supported. Your monthly gift of $5, $10, or $25 is the reason that we can continue to improve and expand these tools for online Christian outreach and discipleship. To make a one-time donation, sign up for the Lutheran Ninja Clan regular giving, or to find information about how to put Worldview Everlasting in your congregation's budget, click Donate Now.